Dozens killed by Israeli strikes on Gaza as the humanitarian crisis there worsens. Hello, I'm Arnold Schneider, and this is The Heat. The humanitarian situation inside Gaza is causing increased alarm, with fears now of starvation and famine. The crisis has deteriorated in recent weeks after Israel imposed a blockade on food and fuel to Gaza. And dozens of Palestinians have been killed in a series of Israeli strikes across Gaza on Wednesday. Palestinian officials say women and children are among the victims. The situation could be about to get even worse. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that Israel is set to ramp up its military offensive as it continues to pressure Hamas.
In the very coming days, we are going in with full force to complete the operation. Completing the operation means defeating Hamas. It means destroying Hamas.
There is much to discuss, and joining me now here in the studio is Dan Arbell. He's a veteran of the Israeli Foreign Service and current scholar in residence at the Center for Israeli Studies at American University. Also joining the discussion is Saeed Arikat. He is Washington correspondent for Al-Quds daily newspaper. Welcome to both of you. Dan Arbell, let me start here in the studio. Let's start with this warning from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the Israeli army is about to launch a major escalation in Gaza in the coming days. And this is coming, as I mentioned, as the UN and other international agencies are warning of famine, of starvation in Gaza. We also had these attacks on Wednesday, which killed dozens of people. Netanyahu says Israel will go in his words, with full force. Question is, again, what is the Prime Minister hoping to achieve with this?
It's a great question, and good to be here. I think that right now, these are very critical days as Donald Trump is visiting the region today in Qatar. I think that, a U.S. strong message to Netanyahu not to go ahead with his plans may impact or lead Netanyahu to reconsider his decision. But nothing else seems to be swaying the Prime Minister from going on this, prolonging the war and intensifying it. I don't see defeating Hamas is a very amorphous kind of goal. You need to, and I don't see Israel having really a clear exit strategy. And therefore, one has to assume that Netanyahu's motives for launching this intensified campaign is mostly politically motivated rather than strategically motivated. Because right now, what's important for Israel, I think, is to get the hostages out. And if you prolong the war, that's going to hurt the chances for getting the hostages out. Netanyahu's logic is, or at least what he's saying, is the opposite. He's saying, the war effort or the pressure of war on Hamas will make them concede or give up hostages. But I think that these two goals of defeating Hamas right now and getting the hostages out are conflicting goals, and that won't. And it's very. I think Netanyahu is mistaken in what he's doing, and I think, again, as I've said earlier, it's politically motivated, and I hope that Donald Trump finds a way to convey that message to him.
Very briefly, Dan, what about Israeli public opinion?
So, again, polls show that 70% of Israelis want the hostages out, want the war, even at the price, so-called, of ending the war. Netanyahu is very unpopular. Only among his base, he's enjoying it. So, getting to the point which you asked, it's very, very hard, though, in Israel's political system, in the government system, to get rid of the government or to bring the government down, as long as they have a 68 majority out of 120 in Knesset, and elections are not expected before 2026. So
that's right.
But public opinion is definitely against Netanyahu.
Yeah. Saeed Arikat, good to have you with us on the show. Saeed, the Jerusalem Post published a story this week with the headline, and I'm quoting here, quoting Netanyahu. He said, "Things you've never seen before are going to happen in Gaza." And we look at this side after so much suffering and destruction, and there's an estimate of 53,000 Palestinians killed. That's a conservative estimate. I mean, how much worse could this get?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, the situation is very, very bad, but this goes along with the plan that Israel has had for the Palestinians ever its inception. I'm intrigued by the questions that you asked your other guest. First of all, on public opinion. I mean, Israeli society, let's face it, is a right-wing society. It's a society that supports the killing and occupation of another people. They feel that one, they are the chosen people. Second, they feel that they are the victim and no other victims can come close to them. And third, they feel that the Palestinians are less than human. Most Israelis feel that way. So to talk about freeing the hostages, I don't think Netanyahu cares about the hostages. I don't think he's done anything to free the hostages. Quite the contrary, he killed most of them. So they don't care about that. We heard that from from Netanyahu himself, from leaders, and so on. So the priority for Israel, and it gets a total support from the United States of America. We should not be fooled, and the European. The mission is really to kill as many Palestinians as possible, to drive as many Palestinians out of their land as possible, and to dehumanize the Palestinians further, so nobody could raise their voice. I think that's what we saw in the past, and that's what we will continue to see in the future. All these, the grandeur thing, these things that you have never seen, and so on. I think that Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders have always dropped on the Palestinian bombs that no one has ever seen before, supplied by the United States of America. 2,000-pound bombs, destroying homes, killing people. I mean, look what happened today. Under the pretext, a phony pretext of going after a militant, they killed more than 80 civilians.
Yeah. Dan, is it still the Israeli government's plan to force all Palestinians out of Gaza? I mean, we've heard that from some ministers saying that, the reason that there is this intensified attack on Gaza is to force the Palestinians to flee, but to where? That's not clear. The other thing is that, talking about support that the Israelis have been getting so far from its allies in Europe, from the United States, there are some cracks beginning to appear right now. We had President Trump talk about that. We've had the French President, Emmanuel Macron, criticize Israel as well. There was a sharp response from the Israeli president, but still, that came from the French president. So the Israeli leadership must be aware of these things.
Yes, I think that the Israeli leadership is aware, but I don't know how much of a concern there is from Europe's positions, which have never been very favorable towards Israel. But I do think there's a deep concern over how Trump is handling different issues, whether it's the resuming negotiations with Iran, ceasefire with the Houthis, talking behind Israel's back with Hamas over a hostage deal, supporting Erdogan of Turkey, which is one of Israel's greatest critics, and now today meeting with Ahmed al-Shara, the Syrian interim president, in Riyadh. All those are run contrary to what Israeli policy, Netanyahu's been advocating. And so certainly those who were euphoric when he was elected, that this is a new dawn on a great relationship or a honeymoon period between Israel and the United States under Trump, are now seeing that it's not so much so. As to the situation in Gaza, I think that Netanyahu is pushing to what eventually this would lead, if he goes on this intensified war effort, would lead to Israel reoccupying Gaza, establishing military rule, and Israel in some way responsible together with a U.S. Private company for the distribution of humanitarian aid. That promises a prolonged presence of Israel in the Gaza Strip for years to come, which is something that, again, I believe runs contrary to Israeli strategic interests and contrary to Israeli public opinion that does not want to reoccupy Gaza and have a presence there for a long period of time.
Yeah. Said, what do you make of the fact that there has been some criticism of Israel coming from its allies, as I pointed out, albeit very mild criticism? Does that indicate that there could be a change in the way the West handles this?
Well, ultimately, the West will have to, probably acquiesce to the sentiment of their publics. Look, there is a great deal of disgust with Israel and its crimes against the Palestinians and against the region. I mean, Israel is a very aggressive entity that strikes in Syria, strikes in Yemen, strikes everywhere that it wants to. Israel is ambitious. It has colonized a lot more land now than when it was created. Israel has been, unashamed about basically garnering Western help and so on, and making them complicit in what it does against the Palestinians and the people of the region. Now, there is a great deal of support among the public, which has not been reflected thus far for the Palestinians in the United States of America, for instance. Young people are almost 2-to-1 against Israeli transgressions and Israeli crimes and so on. They support the Palestinians. We see this in Europe to a lesser extent. But ultimately, yes, they will be affected by that. For now, I don't think that President Trump has really changed anything. Remember, Trump, even before he assumed office, he talked about his great love for Israel and so on. And after assuming office, he basically said that Israel can do whatever it wants. He does not have any guarantees that the ceasefire will continue. He invited Netanyahu as the first visitor to the White House, talked about ethnic cleansing of Gaza, talked about making it the Riviera, and so on. So he has a very strong record of supporting Israel. I don't think we will see this compromise in any way, shape, or form. Trump is trying to cater to his Arab interlocutors, maybe for business, maybe for billions of dollars, but at least towards Israel. Until now, we see the support ongoing, the military support unstoppable, and Israel, and the support in the diplomatic circle is also very strong.
Very quickly, I mean, we're talking about criticism from Israel's allies. Why has there not been more vigorous opposition from regional Arab leaders?
Well, I mean, I don't want to, I agree with you. I don't think that regional Arab leaders have been basically vocal in supporting the Palestinians and demanding that aid would go in. I mean, look what we see. We see Israel using starvation as a weapon and disallowing anything from going in. And the Arabs have not done much. They met twice, and once in 2023, and then again 2024, to say that aid must go in, but have done absolutely nothing to send in the aid. So there is a great deal of either looking the other way or playing complicity. We hope that this will change. Now, the same thing on the popular level, on the as far as the people are concerned, I think there's a great deal of support for the Palestinians.
You want to say something, Dan?
Yeah, just to the point that you mentioned about evacuating Gaza by Netanyahu, I think that Trump is no longer talking about it. So I wonder where and where U.S. policy is on it. Netanyahu obviously wanted to, and made part of his war effort is to try and bring to more Palestinian refugees. But where are they going to go? I mean, Egypt is not going to accept them. Jordan is not going to accept them. Where else can they go? So I don't think this is. I think it's a I don't believe it will lead to something concrete.
Trump is in the region, but he's not going to Israel. I mean, does this risk Netanyahu further alienating Trump?
So, like Said said, Netanyahu is the only leader that visited the Oval Office twice since January, both in February and in April. And I think that I don't believe we're seeing a rift between the U.S. and Israel. I think that U.S. and Israel relations are strong and solid, long-standing. I do think that, however, that Trump and Netanyahu don't see eye to eye, and all that the stuff that I mentioned earlier, that certainly differences in policy and in emphasis. And I think that Trump has decided not to wait on Netanyahu anymore, not to wait on Israel anymore, just pursue U.S. interests without ensuring all the time that Israel is behind him or is supportive. So he's going to go. If Israel wants to, it'll join the U.S. If not, then it'll stay left behind.
Right. Said, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to address the situation inside Gaza, conditions there. As I said, the humanitarian situation continues to worsen, with 500,000 people now facing starvation, and as I said, a critical risk of famine. What do you know about conditions there?
Plenty. I think that what we have seen in the last couple of days, two major things. First, there was a piece in the New York Times that basically exposed how Israeli officers and top-ranking officers and officials acknowledge when they discussed among themselves that Gaza is on the brink of famine. It was published today, I believe. So there is that acknowledgement. There, people know what's going on, and they know that Israel is using a starvation as a weapon. They do care. I mean, they care that they will have a humanitarian disaster on their hand, and they are causing a humanitarian disaster. So there's plenty of information there. Also, yesterday, the WHO, the World Health Organization, issued a very dire report that we are really on the brink of starvation. We know that people have no place to go. They have no clean water to drink. They have no medicine to treat. Israel keep destroying hospitals under the pretext that there are militants there, which has never been proven. So there is no medical care. There is no facilities, and nothing is going into Gaza since the 2nd of March. Remember, 2.2 million people are completely besieged, disallowed from any basic humanitarian aid. The situation is really awful as far as, perhaps, being able to continue on for another week or 2 weeks.
Dan, final point. I want to get your view on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. I've only got a minute, though. But, there's various options being discussed. One of them is that the United States take over distribution of food aid. The Israelis are still blocking that. And we've heard this over and over again, that the Israelis are using starvation as a weapon of war. That is a war crime.
Yeah. So these allegations, I don't agree with them. I don't think Israel's deliberately starving the people of Gaza. I do think that Israel's making it very hard for because it doesn't trust Hamas, that the humanitarian aid will get to the places where they're most needed, and they believe that Hamas is going to take over control of the humanitarian aid and distribute it to their as they see fit, and not according to the needs. This arrangement now being worked out. Pressure, under Trump's initiative, and Israel is supportive of it, and I believe it will be eventually instated soon.
Okay, Dan Arbell, Saad Arikat, thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more perspective on the crisis, now let's hear from Edmund Ghareeb. He is a Middle East scholar and analyst. Also with us is Michael Maloof. He is a former senior Pentagon strategic analyst. Welcome to both of you. Edmund, if Israel, as threatened, launches this all-out assault on Gaza in the coming days, what will it mean for Palestinians? I mean, how much more can the Palestinians endure? They are now at very serious, real, severe risk of being driven out.
Greetings to you and to my friend, Mr. Maloof. I think clearly what we are seeing now is that the Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing a lot of pressure. He's facing pressures internally from within Israel itself. There are those who are opposing his policies in terms of dealing with the hostages. He's facing difficulties, even in criticism, even from the former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who believes that what he's doing is very damaging and harmful to Israel and not harmful to Hamas. He is becoming isolated internationally, and he's very much concerned about also the tension with the U.S. administration. At the same time, the U.S. has taken a number of steps recently. For example, the negotiations to release the American-Israeli citizen who was a soldier in the Israeli army, Alexander Aidan, without telling the Israelis. They negotiated with Hamas, which angered Prime Minister Netanyahu and the extreme right wing in Israel, who support him. He also went back to the negotiation table with Iran, while Israel and its allies in the U.S., including some within the administration itself, favored the idea of launching strikes against Iran. And so if we look at all of these things, he even is not going to visit Israel unless there are dramatic changes taking place now. during this trip to the Middle East. All of these send a signal that there is tension in the relationship. And while Netanyahu believes that he needs to continue to the war if he is going to remain in his position, because he's going to face jail term internally. And on top of it, he is also facing the problem that it's becoming very difficult for him to travel overseas as the decision of the ICJ.
Okay. Michael Malouf, great to see you, Michael. What do you believe, Michael, is Israel's endgame?
Well, thank you for having me. Greetings also to my friend Edmund. Netanyahu's endgame is to survive politically. He's doing all that he can. He sees as Edmund has pointed out, the trend is going the other way toward what he wanted the United States to do, and that is be its puppy dog and bomb Iran. And in order for Netanyahu to stay in office, he's got to act tough and continue to threaten Iran. I think the real concern is that he may just deliberately do something on his own without U.S. approval or coordination on Iran that will try and attempt to suck in the United States into a conflict with Iran. Iran, for Netanyahu, is the ultimate boogeyman, but Trump has shown another direction, and he is showing that that he wants to make a deal, if you will, with Iran, and he does not want to bomb. And he's made that very clear in his statements in very recent days in Saudi Arabia and now in Qatar. So I think I think that Netanyahu's feeling isolated, and increasingly isolated, I should say, even though Mr. Trump has indicated that he wants a peace throughout the region so that there can be the normalization of relations with Israel and renew the Abraham Accords. On the other hand, that's not going to happen given that Saudi Arabia and the other Arab countries want a two-state solution, which Netanyahu is vehemently opposed to. Netanyahu wants to recreate the greater Israel concept, which is more of a Masonic approach to grab all the territories, not only in Gaza, West Bank, but also in Syria, Lebanon, and so on, and parts of Iraq, by the way. So it's that Euphrates to the Nile concept that is biblical in nature, which he and his extreme ministers are adhering to, such as Ben-Gvir and Smotrich.
Edmund Ghareeb, as I discussed with our two previous guests, there's been very little support, diplomatic or otherwise, from regional Arab countries. But there could be countries like Egypt and Jordan, which maintain diplomatic relations with Israel. They could come under increased pressure to accept Palestinian refugees. What would be the consequence of that?
Clearly, this is going to be a very dangerous step for both countries. Both countries are facing a lot of pressure, both internal and external. However, the internal pressures are actually in favor of supporting the Palestinians, supporting their right to stay in their own country. And while there are some players outside who favor the idea of basically getting the Palestinians out of Gaza and maybe even the West Bank. Actually, about one month before the October 7 attack, there was an article by Israeli military strategists who said that there are forces within Israel who are seeking to expel the Palestinians from Gaza and to Egypt, and those in Jordan to the West Bank, and those in Galilee to Lebanon. And so that shows, in fact, that there was a plan that where some of the Israeli right-wing leaders within the government and outside it who favored this. And this is definitely, we are seeing, in fact, life becoming, very difficult, if not impossible. Gaza is becoming almost unlivable to a certain extent, even parts of the West Bank. There are attacks on Lebanon and Syria. At the same time, there are apparently talks about maybe sending some of these
Yeah.
Palestinian refugees to Syria and maybe to Sudan. There have been talk of Somalia, but so far there is opposition from all of these countries.
Michael Malouf, how great is the risk that there could be destabilization of the entire region if Netanyahu goes through with this idea of forcing the Palestinians out? I mean, this is not some kind of placid neighborhood. This is not a friendly place. This is a region that is really a powder keg.
Yeah, it would be traumatic, especially if he acts on his own. If there was no better way to isolate himself even further, and even to stoke the wrath of Donald Trump. If he goes on his own, he'll be on his own, and that will bode ill for even U.S. support any further. I think for Israel. Already there's tensions between them, between Trump and Netanyahu. He's not visiting Israel on this trip. At least nothing's scheduled yet. And that was a real snub. So I think Trump is trying to send a message to Netanyahu to do nothing or else. And in terms of trying to force Palestinians into Egypt and Jordan, if that happens, it will unite all of the other Arab countries, and maybe it could result in them standing up militarily. And I wouldn't doubt that Jordan will certainly be involved. The Egyptians are already talking about a confrontation with Israel, in spite of the fact that they have they've tried to get along all these years. But I think there is a breaking point. And Saudi Arabia and Egypt are very, very close. So I think that if the crown prince of Saudi Arabia wants a two-state solution, that seems to be the track that Trump tends to be following, and that may help him to put even increasing pressure on Netanyahu. But if Netanyahu wants to survive internally, I think that's going to be a difficult pill for him to swallow. And so I don't rule out the possibility that Netanyahu on his own will do something that will unite the country behind him, and doing an external invasion or even a limited attack inside of Iran will help solidify his political support internally. And I think he is prepared to do that.
And that's where we need to leave it. Our thanks to Michael Malouf and Edmund Ghareeb for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington.